Okay, we are live with Jordan Anderson from Bitbuy and my younger brother. Notice how I always say younger brother now? Plus, I think your headset's on backwards. Just the way it's sitting on your ears is definitely on backwards.
I actually don't want it sitting the way it normally
hurts your
sits.
ears? You have sensitive ear lobes? You have sensitive ear lobes.
When you introduce me, it's supposed to be younger and smarter and stronger.
That's
better.
I don't lie.
That's okay.
Just younger. Dude, I didn't know you had sensitive earlobes. That's nice that you're Jordan's here.
Boys, when did this turn into a comedy show?
No. Do you notice I just ignore it and then move on? I just wait for him to stop. He can laugh at his own joke and then we move on. Okay. It's like it's part of the thing we got to do.
Okay,
Jordan,
I'm with you today.
Yeah. So, Jordan, do you have siblings? I don't think we've ever asked.
Sisters.
Sisters? How many?
Yeah,
come closer to the mic. Yeah,
Two sisters.
Two sisters?
Yeah.
Older, younger?
Both
older?
One older and one younger.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I couldn't compute that.
Pretty easy to figure out.
All right.
I got you, Jordan.
You guys are driving today.
Yeah.
And then you get along with them, okay? Now this is all being recorded, so I don't know what you're going to say, but
they're the best sisters in the world.
Okay,
I couldn't
got it.
happier.
Okay, we'll move on. So before we get into some of the news on Bitbuy and stuff, we need to ask, when is Bitcoin going to hit 100,000 US dollars? And we're going to hold you to this, Jordan. Is it happening this Wednesday or next Wednesday?
Well, you're asking the right question, when, because you're not asking is.
Oh,
yeah. If or is it going to happen?
Exactly. So
so you're on board. You think it's going to hit?
Yeah, I mean it's heading there.
Do you guys at Bitbuy ever have?
So really, we shouldn't even be asking that question because it's going to hit. So
I like it.
Well,
let's just be patient.
Tom has made big promises to a lot of people. So
sit back and enjoy the ride, right, Tom?
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying the ride. I like seeing people freak out.
Continue to enjoy the ride.
Yeah. It is interesting because when the price starts moving up, everyone thinks they haven't bought enough. And as soon as it starts coming down, I get text messages and emails like, Tom, is this thing, it's two. Is this still a good thing to own? And other people are, is this the bottom? Should I be buying now? So some people are still aggressive, but they want to know if somehow I know if this is the bottom and they should be buying. Is it a good price to buy? That's the language. Right. Is now a good price to buy?
Right.
And I just tell them, we just buy whenever we can.
Right.
Always.
It's just getting...
The thing is like for 100K, I'm almost at the point where it's like, I'm like, I know it's going to get there, but I'm like, take as long as you want because once it hits, what are we going to do then? What are we going to talk about then?
Yeah. Oh, we're going to talk about 250K.
Okay.
No, but that's interesting. You think it's going to go there at some point. Where is that coming from? Just the confidence in Bitcoin? Or, for me, it's always like, well, they're just going to print more Canadian dollars and more American dollars. So priced in dollars.
It's the formula. It's just inevitable. It's just everything that's happening outside of Bitcoin. And then the way that Bitcoin's mathematically programmed, we're heading there, boys. And look at how far we came in 2021.
Yeah.
Right. Look at where we closed and look at where we finished.
And I just see the amount of money going into the space in general. So not just Bitcoin, but I'm just like, it's the new space. It's what the computer companies and internet companies were 20 years ago. It is the new space for all this stuff. And there's going to be growth there 100%. If this is the foundation of it, if it maintains the foundation of it, which I think it will, there's got to be value there with it.
It's a black hole. It's just going to suck up all of the traditional fiat money slowly but surely for the next 10 years. And we get to sit back and watch it happen. How lucky are we?
Do you ever doubt that thought? Because I agree. I agree. But do you ever doubt that thought? Do you think, because I'm just interested. You're in your early 30s.
I used to, but not anymore.
Why?
I just think my conviction is that strong.
Do you have those kinds of conversations inside Bitbuy? Or no, is it just because you guys have been growing so much, there's other things, operational challenges, growth, hiring?
Yeah, we don't talk about it. I think it's just like, that's just like almost taboo. But I think that there's just so much to talk about with Bitbuy itself that everybody's so focused that no one's thinking about the price of Bitcoin. They're just,
heads down running.
Well, they're just let's grow that feature, let's grow that division, let's add that feature, let's improve this,
What?
put out that fire.
during the day, and then they glance every once in a while. They glance at the price.
What?
Because if you're surrounded by it all day,
Volume's a big thing. Trading volume.
Huh.
And that's price determined as well. So it's like, what's happening with volume this month? Are we up? Like, especially on the account management side, we're a little slow this month. Volume.
That's
down.
interesting. So you guys can almost see the public sentiment just based on volume.
Volume, yeah, and our volume's public. So
is your volume public?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a list last time when you were on. There was like a website where you could see the volume of all the exchanges.
So you mean
right?
you could see BitBuy's exchange volume?
Yeah, every day
Really?
on CoinMarketCap. Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, we looked it up last time. I forget what it was last time. I'd imagine it's grown over time.
CoinMarketCap. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Which is the most trafficked site in the industry, and Binance owns it, and they have like over 1,000 exchanges listed there, and part of the requirement to have your exchange listed there is to show all your different trading pairs and the volume, and that's the data side of this business. The data side of the crypto industry is huge.
Okay, so then you guys get to see volume, which gives you some insight just into public sentiment because you can just see how much is coming in. I guess those could be buy or sell orders or swapping from one to another, Bitcoin to something else. That's interesting. And I guess then you guys
volatility drives volume. So when the price moves one way or another, volume's usually up.
Okay, so for the last 2 months, then if I was to guess without even looking at coin metrics, your volume has been lower than average just because the price has been so stable.
Yeah.
I say that
choppy, flat. Yeah,
choppy.
Exactly. Yeah. Like November, October, it kind of went September, and then we went up in volume in October, then up in volume again in November, and then down a bit in December.
Got it. Because out of the summer came, we hit 30K in the summer. Then it kind of came out of that. So September and October kind of rocketed the volume a little bit.
In November, we hit that new all-time high.
Yeah. Was that November?
Yep.
Oh, God, it seems like 6 months ago. That was only November.
Mid-November.
Okay. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't think of it that way. Volatility drives volume on the exchanges. So what other insights do you guys just get casually? Do some people like... I call him Santiago, but you say Santi, I think. Santiago and Vit, another guy on your team.
Yep.
Do these guys, I guess you guys hear other requests for other types of coins? That's something else that you probably get informally?
Yep.
Is that how you got, because I think BitBuy now has things like Solana and a few other ones that you guys didn't have like a year ago.
Yeah.
Is that what drives some of those decisions? You just hear the requests, or no, you see it from the industry as a whole and then BitBuy decides they want to add it?
Well, yeah, because on the OTC side, there's some trading of some additional coins there, and then so there's then the demand to then add those coins to the accounts. Right?
Got it.
And so
it is coming from your clients.
So there was some trading of those coins, and then added to the accounts. Yeah, exactly. So definitely a lot of that. We run surveys too, and we survey the clients and ask them. We put Twitter posts up. What coins do you want to see next? So, and then we also have other determining factors. Like we'll look at trading volume, market cap, places where the liquidity can be sourced, and all these different factors.
Oh yeah, because just sourcing the liquidity of some of the things you're going to offer. Yeah, got it. So there are a whole bunch of different things to think about.
There's got to be a market.
The market makers.
Okay.
That can then come in and trade those coins as well.
Okay, so then another question for you, and I don't know how much you can answer for regulatory reasons, so just however you want to handle this, but stable coins, that seems like a growing space that's going to be... is it coming?
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be heavily regulated.
We're a little late on the stable coin.
You think so?
We don't have any right now, but...
You're going to be bringing them, you think?
No, we are.
Okay.
Yeah, I can say it.
I think you guys have put it out.
USDC.
Yeah.
You are?
Thought,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I've read that someplace.
Yeah. I just feel that one, USDC specifically, I mean, there's Bitcoin, which I definitely love. There's no doubt. I just want to make that clear. I love Bitcoin. Okay, I just need to make that very clear. And I think of Bitcoin very differently than everything else. But the stable coins are interesting because when I see people transacting around the world who might not have access to Fedwire or, US banking, that's interesting because that opens up a lot of doors for some people transacting in business that maybe they couldn't before. So the liquidity requirements of stablecoins seems almost endless right now. Whether we go to a Bitcoin world where the unit of account becomes Bitcoin or not, right now and probably for the next several years, stablecoins seem super interesting.
Could you guys see real estate transactions getting settled in stablecoin?
Yeah, I never really thought about that, but I guess we
Yeah,
probably
I
could.
think,
Why
I
not?
think if there's like auditing and insight into it and they know they're
Holy
bad,
shit,
I
the
don't
banks
see
are
why.
fucked.
Wiring's not that bad. It's like how much better is stablecoin than wiring? I guess wiring's pretty bad.
Oh yeah,
Wiring's pretty bad because if you're trying to close a real estate transaction, the wire, you don't.
it just sucks. Everything about wiring sucks.
The one thing though about wiring, and I'm just putting on my little banker hat here, is the fact that you have to go to the bank and someone's there and be like, you sent that wire, like that's got to cut down on some fraud. That's kind of why we have wire versus bill payment.
But
like someone sitting at home and just like, how you can just add the payee and like send.
Oh yeah,
like
because I've done that before through some of when we've through some other purchases like through gold and stuff like that, and I've just paid as a bill payment even though it was an online order before we picked it up.
Yeah.
So that's why you guys do the wire, because the wire, like the reason I said it sucked is like, let's say right now the price is down. I'm like, oh, I'd like to throw some more money into Bitcoin, and I'm like, oh man, okay, I got to get to the bank and I got to do this and I got to, send in the form and so, and I'm like, it'd be nice just to be like,
take a
busy guy.
I got to take a picture of
This is like
take a picture of my receipt and send it over to Bitbuy.
Yeah,
here's
it's just the worst
here's my
experience.
picture of my wire that I sent you.
And it's such an old, and wiring. If you're ever wiring between countries, I mean, my God, when we had to do that into Europe, like,
and you're like worried because you're like putting in those additional IBAN or
they also treat you like a criminal though. Where is this money going? Why is it going? Where is it going?
And there's no like crash course on like what's the difference between IBAN, Swift, and then there's
account, no, just your straight up account.
And then in the US you have ACH.
Oh, I don't think I've ever wired into the US.
That's like the equivalent of EFT, but that's like within their borders.
Got it.
And so and this is like what's the ACH?
I literally always just think it's a miracle if it gets
and
there.
then intermediary banks. So it's like it's like doing bank hops.
Bank hops.
Yeah, that's the thing that just gets me now. Now, once you get into the crypto world and you just see how quickly things settle, and you're just like, oh my. So when you go into the legacy system to do stuff like that, it just seems strange. Like it's hard to
benefit in the bank's defense.
And then it gets stuck. And it gets lost. Has that ever happened to you guys?
No.
I think
I don't
one
want
on
it
a
to
small
happen.
wire for me, it didn't make it. But that's in the defense of the banking system, it comes back.
Yes.
They can actually track it back to you, which is kind of nice. Whereas
Whereas here, if you screw it up, you're out of luck.
If you send a stable coin to the wrong address, it's settling.
But there's a validator usually. So it's like if it's an actual real address, like a wrong address that actually exists, you're in shit. But if it's just like you're making a typo and you're adding a digit,
it'll tell you,
like
this is the proper address.
Right. So at least there's that.
Yeah. But I think stable coins, there is a place for them because they settle quickly and it's final. Whereas wires, I feel like if you're selling someone a property, I don't know, I feel like you've wired the money and it's like, okay, did this settle? I always feel like the banks can claw it back.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the banks can reach into your account at any moment and say, oh, well, we told you it was there, but there was an error and we just clawed it all back.
Right. And you know what I love? TX IDs. So it's like when you set, like, so I'll do a lot of payments in stablecoin or Bitcoin or whatever. And then it's like, I sent the payment and here's the link to prove it. And then you like hyperlink to the blockchain to like, so with USDC, you're sending over ERC20, which is the Ethereum network, and then you send the TXID from Etherscan, and then it's like the person you're sending the money to or the company you're sending the money to clicks it, and then they see it's like there's the amount right there. There's 100 block confirmations or whatever, how many block confirmations.
It's cool.
Like and they're like, where's the money? It's like,
I bought something from France and I made a Lightning Network payment from their website. Right. It said pay in Bitcoin on the Bitcoin blockchain, or do you want to use a Lightning payment? I used a Lightning payment. I swear I hit payment. It said instantly the payment was done. The guy emailed me, I feel like from France, 30 seconds later. Okay, yeah, see the payment. We're good. I was like, what the heck just happened? It was incredible.
It's incredible. You're sending money at the speed of light.
The one thing we didn't talk about with the banks too is and I guess this is my thing because I'm not a huge
now we're
fan.
Defending the banks?
No, I'm actually not. It's the control that they take over your funds too, because we've seen a lot of people try to transfer funds into some places, and the bank's like, nope, we're not doing it. And the people are like, what are you talking about? This is my money. I want to send it here. And they're like, no, we don't support that type of stuff. Some of it's for crypto things. We're like, we're not allowing you to send it here. And I'm like, well, and I get there's a lot of fraud and that type of stuff going on, but I mean, like, with a little bit of research, you can see it's a legitimate company and that type of stuff. So that gets a little bit squirrely for me. I'm like,
you feel like you're begging for your own money.
Yeah.
We have a friend, it's a client of Bitbuy's, who, as the price was coming down recently, he's like, hey, want to buy a bit more? And he usually wires over to you guys. I don't want to say his name, but he went on, he's like, Tom, what is your limit on your Interact e-transfer? And I told him, he's like, well, I didn't know you can make it that much. So he called, and I won't say the bank name, it was TD. And he gets on the phone with them, and they basically argued with him saying, we're not going to raise your Interact transfer limit unless you tell us where the money's going. And he's like, well, I'm using it for multiple reasons. Like, it's not always going to the same place. It's my account. Can you just please raise my limit? And he's like, no, we're not going to raise your limit until you tell us where the money's going. And he's like, I love my mom, and I'm sending money to my mom. How about that? And he had to get a manager on the phone, and the manager finally approved it. But this was all, like, this is his money. Right? That he was basically he felt like he was begging to get his money.
I just love the answer.
Yeah, he's like, listen, I love my mom. I'm sending money to my mom regularly. I need a higher limit. Okay. That's where, what do they want to hear?
Yeah. They also want to charge you high fees.
But I can see, so if I just bring this back to Bitbuy for a second, a place like Bitbuy where that much volume is flowing in, and let's call it you can call it their investment. You can call it some people's savings. Like, I'm looking at Bitcoin as a savings account.
Okay.
So now an exchange or a digital marketplace, what's the right language for Bitbuy?
A crypto trading platform.
A crypto trading platform.
And marketplace.
And marketplace is taking, let's say, some of my savings. So they're replacing the Canadian bank's savings account. Really, that's what they've done in a sense. I don't know if anyone's thinking of it that way. Then if some of these guys over time start bringing in like a credit card.
Yeah.
If they bring in a credit card, and then if they allow some interest to be paid on some of my savings there, whether it's in Bitcoin or if they're going to bring in like USDC and pay it in USDC, now you have something that's a direct competitor to the banks. And I don't even think the banks see any of this coming. I think they're still laughing at this. Like, you can say this out loud, and I think the banks don't even get it.
Yeah. I mean,
and then if a Bitcoin miner,
exists,
imagine a Bitcoin miner in Canada buys a Bitbuy. Now, a Bitcoin miner that's out there harnessing energy, mining Bitcoin, gets people's savings accounts, introduces a credit card. Like, it's a whole other banking system being built out.
Yeah, but what about
the revolution is here?
No, it feels like it.
Yeah, but what about if the regulators don't allow it to happen?
But they are kind of allowing it to happen.
Well, no,
what are they going to not allow?
Your point about if they add additional products all under one roof to compete against the banks.
Yeah,
I guess.
Well,
what do you consider?
This is look. We live in Canada. This is a competitive marketplace. We have the right to compete with banks. They're businesses, right? So they either become competitive, offer these types of products to their customers because their customers want them, or their customers will move their money to other platforms, and they have the right to do so. And that's the bottom line, right? So they have to play catch up. And obviously they're going to be threatened. They're not threatened yet. And the amount of people that are using our types of platforms like you guys is still so small. And
they don't care.
That's a good point.
And I think it's still going to be small for the foreseeable future because people aren't willing to jump through these hoops. And a lot of people just don't care, right? Like, people are like, yeah,
that's also a good point.
I'm making 2% or whatever, but it's 0.5% of interest, and I go to work, I go home, I get my Tim Hortons, and I eat my.
They're living in their world. They got their own problems. They can't.
Yeah, you can't blame them for it.
They got their day-to-day problems,
and that's the masses, right, guys? Like, I mean, you guys know that. Hey, you want to buy real estate and make money and do investments? Like, yeah, I don't know.
I'm tired.
Yeah, I got
long day.
I work.
Which is fair. Yeah. I can't even argue that.
No, we've all been there.
Yeah.
We've all been
right.
there.
So, but obviously it's changing.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that firsthand, like, for the people that want the change.
So you guys are the first or marketplace or digital.
I keep calling them an exchange. Let's call it digital marketplace.
Okay. So you guys are the first ones. What is it? Is it regulated in Canada? Licensed? Like what is
the
word?
language to use?
It's OSC. We're the ones that now you guys are like regulated through. Is that correct?
Yeah. First registered marketplace And then in addition to that, we're also registered as a restricted dealer to trade crypto assets. So so we were approved by the Ontario Securities Commission.
A restricted dealer sounds like you're selling firearms to me or something.
Restricted firearms.
And that's what I was going to ask. So they look at you, like, what do they consider you guys? So they consider you guys.
So for now, we have the approval as a restricted marketplace in Canada for people to transact and trade crypto assets. So when we were the first ones to get that approval here in Canada, that means that Tom could sell you Bitcoin in our marketplace, in the Bitbuy marketplace.
Yeah.
And we are essentially the platform that facilitates that trade, but we're not trading with you, right? A restricted dealer would be more like a broker who's actually selling you guys the crypto versus you guys being able to go. Tom sets a limit order on BTC CAD to sell his Bitcoin for 45K or whatever. Yeah. 50K Canadian.
Yeah.
You come along, you see that order sitting there, you're like, I'm buying that order. And so now that's just a marketplace where customer A has traded with customer B.
It's so weird. So they're looking at, so then if they're looking at cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin or whatever, and there's a range, right? But as assets. And it wasn't long ago, I mean, that we were having this discussion that I was kind of playing devil's advocate with you and saying, okay, well, when the government bans these, here's maybe how they do. What if they just outright it? Now that there's just more and more of it's getting regulated, that threat seems to get smaller every day because they'd have to reverse a lot of their own decisions, which they could still do. But it seems like it's pretty diminished.
Starting to get ingrained into the financial system.
Yeah.
The one that's going to be regulated, I know you guys are going to introduce it, USDC. I got to think this year, 2022, something happens with the stable coins.
But the thing is, if they're really backed by
it's already happening. It's called the travel rule.
What's that?
That is part of what they have on the Swift wire system. So it's it's regulators being able to see where the money is being sent. So they're tracking, like it's all being tracked. So there's systems in place to like track all the different wallet addresses, and you have to actually say, oh, you want to send 20,000 USDC over here. You have to type in where are you sending it.
Is that why on Bitbuy now I see if you take it into your own personal wallet, there's those questions that are coming up? I guess that's part of this whole process.
Exactly.
Yeah, I saw that with my ShakePay wallet for not a lot of money. I forget what I was sending someone, and it's like, hey, who's this going to? And then they want their name and stuff like that. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, that's a change. Yeah.
Can't you just lie, send it to your own wallet and say, hey, I sent it to Nick Karadza, tax him.
Yeah. You could, yeah.
I sent it over, but you send it, you put in the address as your wallet, but I put in your name. Sorry, I don't have this stuff anymore. Nick has it.
Yeah, and it goes back to like the same thing I was telling you guys before on the show. So there's tools like Chainalysis and CipherTrace, and these are companies that are built around cryptocurrency monitoring. So monitoring different addresses, tracking the different blockchain addresses. Is that darknet? Is that for terrorist financing?
So it's all going to be tracked.
And this is the same idea, but now you're doing like a voluntary disclosure, making sure that you're not doing anything.
So it's becoming more like what Michael Saylor's saying, that this stuff is going to be part of the financial system, and you'll look at something like Bitcoin as the perhaps one of the best assets to own, but it's going to be ingrained in the financial system. Everyone's going to be able to track it, as opposed to some of the anarchists, and I don't mean that in a bad way, some of the anarchists who believe we should all have less regulation, less rules, and everybody can custody their own stuff, and nobody should really be tracking it. We're headed more in Michael Saylor's direction right now, I would say, from just hearing this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and the thing about the Ontario Securities approval and the Canadian Securities Administration, it actually should give people an extra level of comfort, because part of that whole process was them auditing our processes, was them making sure we had the right insurance, making sure that we had the right compliance staff on board, that we essentially had those policies, those procedures, different checks and balances on the way that the business is being operated, so that it prevents us from just basically being like cowboys. So essentially like a regulated financial institution, very similar to that, different levels of working capital, making sure that it's a fair marketplace. It's not a marketplace where essentially it's unfair for a trader to come in there and trade. And I think it actually progresses things along, and they're actually more progressive, and they got their whole act together here to put this framework in place. Like, I'm not the one screaming, hey, more regulation, more regulation. Obviously, it was very expensive and it was a lot of work to get it over the line. But I think it'll weed out a lot of bad actors and for the companies that aren't able to kind of get
That's
it
fair,
together and get that.
And that's the thing with any new space. Not just new, any space. Well, I mean, look at real estate. How much fraud is there in real estate with mortgage fraud and stuff like that? It's all over the place, right? So, yeah, if you want structure around it. So,
it's not necessarily bad. Some of your ideals might be thwarted if you're like, oh my gosh, these regulators are in here, but ultimately it could be a good thing. I guess, Nick, were something else there?
No, I was just thinking, if you still, there's still a lot of other benefits to it. If you're like a hardcore kind of purist from the early days, it's like, F the government, F everyone. And I feel
like I still have some of that.
Yeah. And I can see some of that, but there is, to your point, there is a good side because if you want mass adoption, then you need some regulation. Otherwise it just, people won't, I don't know if the mass adoption, I think for it to happen is a lot harder. Because people are busy with their stuff.
More money into this space. It'll bring more institutions into this space.
Might bring it more and more in.
The institutions, for sure. The institutions that deal with some big funds, they need that.
Yeah.
Because a pension fund can't look at this, or a big insurance company that has to, they can't look at this if it's still not regulated.
But I hear what you're saying.
No, and you know what? And
if you want 100K faster, you need this.
From a customer standpoint.
No, I'm fine slow.
Like, look, I'm sitting here, running this business, and I'm saying, I've just gone through this whole process, and it's been a ton of work, and there's been a lot of late nights, and we got it over the line. But from a customer standpoint, it's frustrating because now you're having to answer additional questions. So at the end of the day, I flip it back and say, well, what's the benefit to the end customer? And I think really it comes down to them doing their best to protect you, right? So not just around, making sure that the business itself is operated properly, but also like reducing the amount of risk that people are taking. Like, you guys are smart guys, but
that's a good point.
There's other people that come on, and maybe like dump their life savings into XRP, and then it's down 30%, and and then they sell it, and it's just like, it's kind of crazy. It gets a little bit crazy.
That's fair.
Yeah. There's checks and balances around that as
I never
well.
thought about some of the stuff they must go through, because some people who don't know what they're doing buy something, it goes down 30%. They definitely blame these guys.
Oh God.
Oh my God. What a business. It's like real estate, but a totally different, it's like a modern version. But something else just around the banking system that I just found really interesting. If these guys, if BitBuy introduces the opportunity to have USDC, something just hit me, because I'm like, oh my gosh, you need the banks even less. Because let's say, again, love my Bitcoin, not planning to sell my Bitcoin ever. Okay. But let's say I bought some. Yeah, but no, but the point I'm trying to make is
Greg's not listening. Don't worry.
Yeah, some people are not going to be like that. So they're going to be, hey, I'm going to buy some Bitcoin, but sell some Bitcoin. But see how I said buy instead of sell some Bitcoin, but in that moment, they might take their money back to a Canadian bank. But if these guys have USDC, now, why does the money ever leave BitBuy? Because if I sell my Bitcoin, I'm going to hold it in US dollars in the form of USDC. These guys, it's a black hole in a different way. Like the way, Jordan, you were saying it's a black hole. Bitcoin's a black hole. Some of these marketplaces and exchanges are a black hole.
But let me take your point one step further. The ability to sell back to a stable, pegged cryptocurrency means that then you can go self-custody on your ledger, which is what a lot of those guys like. Like, for now, if you want to sell it back, you could sell it back to CAD and just leave the CAD on BitBuy. So like that problem.
Okay, that's a good point. I never thought about that because I never leave cash in there. I'm always putting it into something. But yeah, okay, because I could have held the cash.
Right.
But yeah, the USDC, I can sell it to USDC, and then I can custody in my hardware wallet.
Right. That's if you don't want to leave the.
Okay, so what would your thinking be? Let's say there's some regulatory. Let's say I'm like, okay, I am going to buy a whole bunch of USDC through BitBuy. What would you guess would be a regulatory response if they change the regulations? Am I going to have like 30 days to get out of USDC? Let's say they debank what is it? Who owns USDC? Circle?
Circle.
Let's say they debank Circle in the US. I'm just going worst case scenario. Do you think I would have like 30 days to get out of my USDC, or just best guess? What do you think would happen in that environment? I'm not holding you to it. You know what I mean? Because I think that's some of my personal curiosity is, what are the regulators going to do to Circle in 2022? If I buy some USDC and hold it because I'm not ready to deploy those funds elsewhere, if they get shut down or debanked.
Well, what my understanding is that Circle's treasury holds all the USD that they issue. So if they're issuing more USDC, it's because they have the USD.
More US dollars.
So they put in circulation, they're holding the US dollars.
Yeah, like
so there's you can go directly to Circle and you can redeem 1-to-1.
Oh, got it. If it's so that could be my backup, going directly to Circle.
Yeah, and we have and Bitbuy has an account with Circle, full transparency.
Got it.
So we could just go to Circle for you, get your USDC back.
Got it.
If it's audited, I don't
good.
see because they can track it on chain, right? And if it's audited, it's not. There's less control, so they would prefer it if it was a government issued, digital currency for sure. But it's not this massive, risk to the US dollar.
Where it's opaque. They can see into the network.
And they're using the US dollar. So it's just a big ass savings account that people are. So if it's truly using the US dollar, so it's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So maybe the US is going
to. That's what you hope. Like that's what the issue, right? With like for example Tether. Like is it 1-to-1?
Exactly.
Are they printing more?
So
that's exactly the problem.
It's a derivative.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Okay, so let's stick with Circle.
Everything.
That's dollar for dollar,
We'll
and
we'll assume
pretend
it is.
a US dollar in a bank account somewhere for every USDC that's issued. Then this gets really interesting because if they decide, forget CBDC, central bank digital currencies, we're just going to let the proliferation of these stablecoins because it's doing our work for us. And we're more comfortable with it now because before we thought we couldn't track stablecoins. So if Nick Karadza buys it and sends it to someone halfway around the world, we don't know where that's going. But now they're reporting it on-chain analysis is better. So they can actually see it where it's flowing around the world. And maybe they get really comfortable with it. And they're just like, stablecoins are our answer. That leads me to the next thing, that stablecoins then could destroy all other fiats because the US dollar will ultimately become the king of all fiats through the US.
Yes,
USDC.
I can
It's a threat to
confirm that
other
100% of the reserves that back USDC are held in cash and short duration US Treasuries. Jeremy Allaire, CEO of Circle, told members of the House Financial Services Committee. So that's a fair assumption that we can make. And so really, they're just creating like a layer on top.
Yeah.
Like it's like a layer.
Yeah.
It's like just another
Instead
layer.
of wiring, you're using basically.
But to your point, then it swallows up other like foreign. So Canada's currency is not in too bad versus
but if
the
you're,
US. But if you're right now Turkey, right?
Could you not just standardize on USDC?
Well, you're as a citizen, you're trying to get rid of your lira in any way you can. So you're trying to get
use US
USDC.
paper dollars if you want, or USDC, and we just start using that. Turkey might be a big enough economy they wouldn't do it.
There's also fees, right? Like now you get into settlement issues. Like if you're settling your USDC on the Ethereum
That's
blockchain,
a good point.
That's true.
Now that can get really expensive.
And if Ethereum gets,
that's okay for us. We don't think about that, but these other countries, that's
and if Ethereum gets shut down, Ethereum's not as decentralized, nearly as decentralized as Bitcoin.
And the other governments would do whatever they could to stop it because they then don't control their own currency.
Monetary policy.
And the U.S. then controls the global currency. So even big countries like China, Russia, they'll put a stop to that. So that I don't think that.
But
flies.
the black market for it, or gray market, whatever the lingo
which exists
is for today.
already all over the place, right?
But you can settle USDC on ETH, Algorand, Solana now, and Tron.
Oh,
and
really?
Tron, that's right.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
because the fees are getting so high on Ethereum that they're moving some of it over to
Solana's an interesting chain.
It seems like it.
Mm-hmm.
It gets a bad rap just because it's so VC backed, from what I understand.
Right.
But it seems like, but it is so centralized as well.
Right. It's
but is it a token or is it a technology? Like is it a technology?
It's like they call it like an ETH killer.
Yeah.
Right, because it's another
smart contract layer.
Yeah. See, I just look at all those things as like a technology company. And do I want to buy the technology company? I look at their tokens almost as like stocks in the technology company. I don't even equate it to Bitcoin. I know a lot of people do. It doesn't even. I don't even view it the same way.
Well, what Raul
Good job.
Raul
that's
Paul
approved.
says
that message is approved.
He says look at it as like a network. like an internet network.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
and so instead of like, so similar, like basically like exactly like Nick said, but what are the network effects? So like, what's the usage? And then people will build more software on top of it. But it's like, it's because people are using these chains and these networks, and then how many people are using it, how many transactions are being used on it, and then chart all of those metrics as the fundamentals to why they have value. And then, for example, I was listening to one pod and they're saying, well, Solana like has a very similar growth curvature on those key metrics as Ethereum did in the early days. And you could almost like map the
it's following Metcalfe's law, the network adoption.
Exactly, and that is how people should be valuing these assets and how they should be pricing them.
So many people are going to miss this boat over the next 10 years.
We'll know in 5 or 10 years when we look back and be like, oh yeah, that was how we should do it, or like, oh shit, that was the wrong way to look at it. Yeah.
So Jordan, what can you tell us about the announcement that was this week about BitBuy? And I don't even know the name of the company.
WonderFi.
I always just think Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah.
WonderFi. That's what that's what it's called. That's why he's Mr. Wonderful. His company's named WonderFi.
They were originally DeFi Ventures.
Oh, got it.
Or DeFi Technologies.
Okay.
And then they switched it to WonderFi.
Yeah, he's probably better branding. Let's face it.
Well, I think one of the rounds, from what I read, it was like one of the rounds he led with a bunch of one of his companies or something.
Got it.
And then from that point, then they switched it. I think I don't know how long ago that was or whatever.
Yeah. So their mission is to essentially democratize finance, and they're doing that through DeFi technologies and making it easier for the average person to then participate in DeFi through their application. And we all know, like, you know, when people talk about DeFi, it's like, okay, buy this token here and then move it into this wallet and then stake it here and then MetaMask that and then wrap it in this. And like, well, I'm just saying, like, for the average person, like,
I just learned about wrapping it. Right, you got to wrap your ETH. I'm like, I got to what? Wrap my what?
They wrap it up.
Am I giving this as a gift to somebody? When I'm wrapping my ETH.
So they're doing that, and the cool thing about that is they're also doing it in a way that is going to be really easy to track it from a tax perspective and a regulatory. And all
got it. So they're trying to do it the proper way, and they have a deal that's not closed yet, but in place with BitBuy as of this week. We got the news. I don't know when this all kind of started. How's that making? I'm
super excited.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and it's honestly, it's a great synergy, and I think that we're really lucky to have got this done, and I think the future is looking better than ever for both BitBuy and WonderFi as a combined entity.
Yeah,
sure. If that's their mission, like that's a pretty cool mission, because if you can take everything we're talking about and make it user friendly and simplify it for people, put it under one roof, it changes things substantially.
And it's a lot of the stuff that you guys talk about in terms of like getting yield and getting interest, and like that's what DeFi really is. When we talk about democratized finance, like it's the next evolution of all the stuff that we talk about, you know, with stable coins and holding Bitcoin as digital gold. And now, you know, why can't I go earn, 15% interest on my assets through this staking pool and do that securely and earn these higher yields? Like, is that not allowed because we're so used to, 8% on this, or you know what I mean,
like 0.8,
like oh, you see like 20%, you're like 20%.
Yeah,
you guys crazy.
Yeah,
but these types of opportunities exist out there. It's just that the average person,
it's been difficult. Yeah, you have to. The average person, we still get tons of questions on how do you move Bitcoin into a hardware wallet. And then you have to explain private keys. Your Bitcoin's living on the network.
Copy and paste.
Yeah. QR codes. Yeah.
A lot of people don't even know how to copy and paste. But copy and paste is like.
I feel like
I feel like once you learn how to copy and paste,
you're on your way.
You're advanced.
Once I discovered on a Mac you could copy something on your Mac and get it on your iPhone. That they shared that, I thought my world changed forever. Because I could see something on my Mac and then like text it out to somebody. That was like a huge discovery. But it really works well in this whole space because you can take addresses off your Mac, but put it onto your mobile app.
Right.
Little things like that. Yeah. But you're right.
My mom doesn't know how to do that.
Yeah, so many people don't know how to do that. Yeah.
QR codes.
I'm sure your mom does.
You know what? The one thing that COVID helped with crypto was QR codes, because now everyone's familiar with QR codes. Because if you went to a restaurant in the last year and a half, or some of them you've had to scan for menus and everything.
Right.
Remember QR code? I thought QR codes were dead. Remember they kind of came out, they were the next big thing, and then they just kind of like disappeared. I'm like, yeah, those things were useless. They died. But
I never knew how, I honestly didn't know how to use them.
Yeah, but now for wallets and stuff like that, it's just easier to scan. I mean,
you needed a QR reader, and then it was like the iPhone, the camera automatically picked up what a QR code was, and that also changed
What
things.
about near field technology, like where you could just like put your phone next to the payment processor, and then like it pulls up your Apple Wallet, and then you just do like a Face ID.
That's really good.
That's
Except
cool.
Face ID when you're wearing a mask in a store.
Well,
Has Apple not figured that out? Yeah, everybody does it. You see everyone in the cash register, they're just pulling their mask down. I'm okay. I'm just doing this for my Face ID. And everyone's like, oh, that's fine.
I know.
You must pay us. Pull your mask down.
When
you're okay to pull your mask down if you're going to pay us, but otherwise, please keep your mask on your face.
When they got rid of fingerprint ID, I was like, why would you get rid of fingerprint? Fingerprint was easier than face.
They should have both.
It was so good.
Fingerprint
was good.
Okay, product engineers at Apple, if you're listening, fingerprint reader. Okay, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Hey, so to your point about yield, though, is I agree completely, because it was like last week or a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at, I have some funds with some USDC at Ledden, and I'm just looking at this and I'm like, why do I not have more money here? Like if I have a savings account elsewhere, I have kind of different silos of savings. So one was for one of the corporations that we have with a couple of properties in it. There's a little bit of a slush fund there for repairs and things like that. For sure. So, and it wasn't in it was in a Tangerine account because it pays better interest. I don't know what it pays, 2% maybe, 1.5%. I don't even know, right? But I'm just looking at it. I'm like, why am I holding it here if I can put it over here and earn the 9% in USDC? And I know there's like, because we were talking about potential like regulation risk with USDC and stuff. And I'm like, seems like
I'm already feeling better about it all. Yeah,
but I'm especially like with like the end of the year, right? Like you're reviewing
exactly.
Like, how did you do?
That's exactly what I did it. Yeah. I'm like, why is this money sitting here? And to your point, I'm like, okay, well that seems silly. So that's exactly. And it's still a process, right? Because then I had to go to the bank. No, I had to transfer. Think about this. I had to transfer from Tangerine to TD. I had to go to the bank, or I forget, maybe it was just an indirect. I used a couple of indirect transfers, transferred it up to Bitbuy. Bought it on bought Bitcoin on Bitbuy, transferred over to Ledden. Then from Ledden, transferred it into USDC, right? I didn't even know what I ended up paying in fees and things like that.
Yeah, and then you probably pay like 1% to 2% of the whole process, right? And then so now that eats in. Now you're from 9 till 7, but then how many years are you going to leave it there? And then if you need to get it out for the slush fund, to use it.
There's more fees.
So there's a lot of friction.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's where. So if you bring that all under one roof, all of a sudden, you're like, holy cow! It changes the game, right? So
I'm just thinking,
that's really
what
cool.
multiple are the Canadian banks going to pay for these guys in the future? Because to our
so
point that they're going to be so late to the game, and to Jordan's point earlier, it's still so small, the amount of people doing this kind of stuff. But when you hear yourself explain it, Nick, and you think about it, you're like, why do I have? When I heard you say that, we have multiple different corporations, and if you take some of the slush fund money that you might keep in different corporations, if you combine all of that and think you can earn a much higher rate, like 9%. What the heck are we doing?
But the yields will come down.
Will come down
because right now the yields are where they are because they want guys like Nick to put their money in so that the space can suck in more liquidity and bring in more liquidity and do more trading and do more derivatives and do more lending.
And naturally, the competition will increase.
Well, a year ago it was 12%. It was 12.5%, I think.
Yeah,
right, and it went down to 9%. Right, so that's why I'm like, I got to take advantage of this now because at 9%, it's just
you're an early adopter.
Yeah, there was a time when if you could earn 10%, because there wasn't as much money printing in inflation. But it's like, when I was younger, I was like, so if you can get $1 million and you can put it in 10%. Some investments and get 10% return,
that's what we were all sold
bucks.
When we were younger.
You have $100,000
You'll get 10%
a
in your retirement.
Yeah.
Earn $1 million, save up $1 million. You'll get 10%. That's $100,000 a year. You retire.
You're good. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I just look at that. I'm like,
that's what we were all
told.
That's
what they told you.
Well, that was implied in a lot.
So you used to be able to get 10%.
I think we were able to get 8. When I was a teller at CIBC, I'm pretty sure some of the bonds that we were going out the door were like 8-9%.
Wow. Well, I mean, your father-in-law, so George, what he was looking, now this was way back, but remember you used to share the story that he raced home from the cottage or something to get a GIC at, what was it, 16, 18?
No, 18%.
A GIC.
Wow. Mid-80s, mid-1980s. He came home from Gravenhurst. His brother went up to the cottage and said, you got to go back to the city right now. You can get GICs at 18%. He immediately left, got GIC at 18%. He shared that story so many times with a big smile on his face. Think about 18%. If you're doing 18%, Then there's nothing.
just looking at your block
That's
clock
the
there.
latest hash. It's part of the latest hash.
Oh, wow.
We're really techie here,
That's
Jordan.
so crypto of you.
Yeah. It's very. I'm
like
very much a
13K.
geek.
I'm like, what's
I'm
trading
very
at 13K?
I'm a proud geek. Okay, I consider myself a geek.
I've watched the market cap here drop.
Guys,
over
focus
time.
on what I'm saying, not the clock behind
18%.
me.
So
I watched it
how
drop by like
long
100.
did he get that for? Sorry.
No, I was just saying because I watched the market cap drop by, I forget how many billions just while we've been here. So I had to look at the price. I'm like, what happened to the price? Because that's a big drop.
Buying opportunity.
So, yeah,
After
that's
we
exactly
end this,
what
we're
I
going to be
thought.
like, hey,
That's
Jordan,
You
we're
mean
just
this morning?
Yeah, this morning.
Like within the last 20 minutes, you're watching it go down.
Well, when we started, it was at 800 billion, the market cap. It went up down to 780. Now it's back at 790.
790.
Yeah,
so
I've
the market cap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right
because
there.
I've just
We
seen
have
that.
one of those at the office,
Do you?
but I haven't set it up the same way as you. We just have it jumping between Bitcoin and Ethereum, USD and CAD prices. So
Oh,
I
cool.
like how you have the market cap.
I
That's
love,
pretty
yeah,
cool.
market cap, the latest hash, the number of nodes. You're sitting in front of a full node right there, Jordan, on the desk. That's a full Bitcoin node right here.
Very cool.
Yeah, so we're all geeked out. We're
I
totally
gotta
geeked
catch
out.
up. I gotta catch up. I'm living in the past.
You're not running a full node, Jordan. What is happening at the office? Can you imagine every individual had a full node over there? But anyway, so back to our conversation.
18%.
At 18%, I was just thinking like how this world is, the banks have very few cards to play anymore. Like they can't offer interest. Their systems seem old. They have bank branches that are costing them money. And I'm not really trying to really kind of piss on them too much or anything. I just feel like their model is just breaking down. It reminds me of Blockbuster and Netflix. Like, remember Video 99 and Rogers Video? You saw them everywhere in Blockbuster. And slowly over time, you just see them disappearing. And Netflix just grew and grew and grew. You can kind of see the same thing's going to happen here.
It seems like that. I don't see
the banks are much better protected, have better walls around their business for sure than renting movies.
The problem is that they move so slow.
They move slow, and they got a lot of people and a lot of real estate.
So let me ask you guys a question about Latin. Is it like set up so that it's a drip? So like that all of the interest that you earn then buys more, and then now you're earning compounding interest?
Yeah, you're earning, if you have a Bitcoin interest-bearing account there, it's earned in Bitcoin, paid out once a month.
And then it goes
into your account.
Correct.
It's just like a savings
It's just
account.
like
then you earn interest on your interest.
Correct.
Okay, good. Yeah. That was, my father-in-law taught me that like a long time ago when I was just dating his daughter before we got married. He was like, the best thing you can do is set up a drip.
I remember
reinvestment
that.
program.
I remember that.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You earn dividends, and then the dividends buy more shares.
Yeah,
that
I forgot.
earn more.
I totally
true,
forgot
though.
about
It's
that.
true.
Yeah, totally forgot.
And he's like, the power of compounding interest.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's 100% true.
So where did
and then you do the math on it, and you're just like 1 times this 1.0.
Yeah, it's
times
crazy
this,
how much
and
it
then you
grows.
Just keep timesing it like year over year, and then it's just like.
Jordan, where do you think you probably never thought you would get to this point so quickly, or maybe you guys did, but now you've come to this point where BitBuy's been around for a little while. Like, it's not been a long while. In your mind, it might be on forever, but it hasn't been that long.
Right.
Now you have Kevin O'Leary's company coming in here, and I know the deal hasn't closed, but there's like this deal's going to close with you guys. What the heck? Can you even extrapolate out the next few years? Because before it was just a few coins. Now you're adding more. We've had a big conversation here about USDC that I didn't know we were going to have.
It's funny. You always whenever I come on, you always ask me years. I'm like, let's just start with a year.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Because so much happens in 1 year here. But, we just added all those coins, the Solana, Polkadot, Dogecoin, some DeFi coins like Uniswap, SushiSwap, a lot of coins that people have been asking for. So we're going to continue to add more coins, and then what we're always focused on is also integrating the deposit and withdrawal function. So a lot of other companies are adding all these coins, but you can't move them in and out. So, big one like with Solana deposit withdrawal, now there's a whole NFT marketplace that's built on top of Solana that's less expensive than Ethereum. So just like things like that where, you're continuing to integrate with the ecosystem and allowing those sort of doing that extra work to flow it in and out. And then having other blockchains integrated. So maybe like, for example, you're not just withdrawing ETH on the ERC20 network, you're also using the Polygon Matic network. You're using the Matic network as well, because we added Matic as well, which is
that's right.
The
I saw
layer
that.
2
Yeah.
for ETH.
So you guys will like, and I don't like it's not built out. I get it. So, but the logic is that to withdraw your funds, then you're not paying as much in gas fees.
Yeah.
Because you guys are now then able to route it through a different network.
Right.
And then the end user really doesn't even know at the end of the day that's happened.
The end user is selecting the different network.
Oh, really?
And putting in the different wallet address for that network, making sure that they match up the wallet IDs with the right network, and they're saving money. Because the fee for that network might be lower. The mining
This
fee.
is what Aiden's been talking. So this is like how 19-year-olds are ahead of everyone at this point. This is what Aiden's been talking about for weeks.
No, I was thinking about that, but I just wasn't like, like I don't know your business, right? But I was thinking, you add coins and you try to attract more people. But then when you start doing that type of stuff, it changes the equation all of a sudden. It's not just about adding coins, because you can add, 100 coins that no one really uses and no one cares about. But when you start doing stuff like that, it changes the value proposition.
Yeah,
Right,
it's not just about just buying coins and holding coins. It's like there's this whole ecosystem that's forming, like that Aiden's part of, and we're gonna slowly become a part of, where it's not just NFTs, but it's metaverse, it's digital real estate.
You can see it.
It's sort of this whole digital ecosystem, and then having these different chains and integrations is going to be a part of it. Obviously, stable coins is a big one, because people just want to be able to move that fiat and then invest that in different places.
Just for moving the fiat, the stable coins just seem to make sense.
What about, do you guys see demand at all for, and I don't know, because the US dollar obviously is used more widely globally, obviously, but is there demand for a Canadian stable coin? Like, I know there is one, isn't there? But I don't think it's widely used.
I think there's a TCAD, and I think that it all comes kind of down to adoption. So
who the heck's using it?
Well, that's why I didn't know if people were. I didn't know if people were asking. I guess.
So I guess like the use case there would be like if there was a bunch of Canadian exchanges, and then all of our users are like, well, I want to use that exchange for this, and this exchange for that, and this exchange
and you
for
can
this.
guys settle.
And like this one has over there, and then you're just bouncing that TCAD like around the different exchanges, because that's kind of what's happening with the USDC, and traders are obviously arbitraging and finding strategies and moving coins here and there, and then maybe buying different assets, digital assets, and so forth. So with us, it's like, well, we have CAD, and then you kind of come through here and you use CAD, and we want you to continue to use Bitbuy, and we compete with the other Canadian exchanges. We think we're the best, so it doesn't necessarily always make sense to have that stable coin. And we haven't seen a lot of demand. We don't see as much demand for it.
The demand for USDC or any of the US dollar stable coins also comes from different businesses that are in like Malaysia
100%,
that can't get access to US dollars through regular bank channels, but then they can get USDC
People also want to
access.
trade in those ratios.
Yeah, got it.
Right, like people don't want to trade like $62,000 Canadian Bitcoin always. They want to trade like $45,000
American
USDC.
Yeah,
Bitcoin.
And that's why I'm just thinking some of these fiats they lose, and I don't think governments get this yet. Just with this system, forget about all the Bitcoin threat, not threat, whatever asset, whatever you want to call it. Just the fact that a US dollar stable coin can become a de facto standard, and the rails to use it are so easy. It kind of diminishes the power of a lot of fiats really quickly.
But that's why I don't know if the US would they might want it. They want to make sure that it's being run properly, and they want to.
But they might shift to really want it.
But that's why I don't think they shut it down, because it grows their power globally for other currency.
Yes. So I think they might flip as looking at it as a threat to all of a sudden looking at it as like, what, maybe we want these to proliferate.
But I still think they want to control it. That's the difference.
We'll see what happens. Like we'll see if they start creating new laws to try to shut these down, because I think as far as we're concerned, like they should operate within some sort of framework, and like if there's no like legal basis as to why they're going to go and close down Circle and shut down, and tell Jeremy Allard to like take a hike, then are they going to start pulling out these new laws and create new legislation?
Jeez.
And then what politicians are doing that? And then if you're anti-crypto and you're doing that, like, are you going to continue to get voted and get into power? Because people in power maybe want the proliferation of cryptocurrency.
Especially with younger voters coming in, right? And older voters dying off. You got the younger crowd coming in to vote. You're going to be anti some of this stuff? The younger crowd's like, what are you talking about?
And you think the U.S. has always been more pro technology than we see that out some of the other countries in the world, like with the advent of the big tech companies and sort of what's that done and that whole sort of realm of politics, just with the big
You're
tech
right. So
companies in
Joe
Washington
Biden,
and them going head to head, and you know what happened with
Joe
with Zuck
Biden has a hardware wallet for
I was
sure.
going to say, do you think Joe Biden knows of Bitcoin? If you ask Joe Biden,
gosh.
like, hey, Joe,
No,
what do you think?
He does not know what Bitcoin
what's
is.
Bitcoin? Do you
He
think
has no clue what Bitcoin is.
So,
Jeez. I don't know.
I
don't know if he knows what day of the week it is, man.
For me personally, like that fear doesn't really come to mind. Like, I think it's important to like understand that as a risk and hedge yourself against it. So that's kind of like why, you know, if you're in this space, like maybe you're not 100%, you have money in the traditional, but like, you know, maybe it's 50-50 or maybe, you know, in my case, like, you know, 70-30
maybe
or
90-10.
But you know, the real is like, it's like when people just are starting out, like even my dad's girlfriend was like texting me yesterday, and I'm like, you know, 5%, she sold her house in Toronto. She's investing more of these assets and in the traditional system. I'm like, well, you know, like 5% of your net worth should be in exposure.
Oh
to
my
crypto.
gosh.
Minimum.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Of your liquid,
Just
say
to
your
start.
liquid net worth, even if you're not taking your whole, everything that
Just
you
to
have.
start, right? You know,
I think-
100% agreed.
and then I kind of, and you know, it's not investment advice, but I'm like, she'll ask me, okay, well, how should I start? And I'll be like, well, you know, why don't you go 80% Bitcoin and 20% Ethereum? You know,
so if somebody was to start with Bitbuy, I guess, and this will maybe be a little commercial for Bitbuy, it would be go to Bitbuy, open an account, you go through the KYC stuff, show your driver's license, make an account, kind of like you're making a bank account.
Right.
Then you can wire transfer or Interact e-transfer funds to your Bitbuy account.
Yep.
So then you now have Canadian dollars inside Bitbuy. Let's just keep it nice and simple.
Yep.
Once the Canadian funds get on Interact e-transfer, how long does that take? A few hours or something like that?
Not even that, I think.
near instant.
Yeah.
Okay, almost. That's right. It's gotten a lot faster.
Yeah.
So near instant. So after you're approved, you send the money over. Then let's say you send $1,000 over there. Then you can choose to buy Bitcoin or any of the other coins that you're talking about. And now you're in the game. And I think the reason that that's important to try out is not for the investment or to get rich. Right? I think it's just so that you're learning this space. I have a lot of friends my age who are dismissive of this space a little bit. They're like, oh, I don't understand what's going on there. And I'm like, do not be like our parents. You know, we're in our late 40s here. In the next 10 years, this stuff is going to probably eat the financial world. You're going to want to know about it. So get in now.
Yeah, just
So
to
almost just from
understand
that
it.
point, Jordan, to your point about putting some of your liquid net worth, just from the education you're going to gain.
Right. Yeah, and if you're the kind of guy who sits there and be like, I need to have a balanced, diversified portfolio, then it's like, well, you know, if you don't have exposure to a $2 trillion asset class, then aren't you not balancing your
The
portfolio?
game's changed when we're talking
No,
that
I
you
know.
have to have some for a balanced portfolio.
And that's
Agreed.
That's why there's still a lot of institutional money, like these family offices and stuff that, you know, like we know some of the guys that we know as well, just even locally, they're not in the game at all, but they have to, they're like, that's not for us. And they're like looking for private equity placements, stuff like that. They have to start paying attention sooner or later, right? But the coolest thing happened to me yesterday. My oldest daughter, Ella, so she's 11. She came up to me. She got $150 from her grandmother or grandparents. I don't know if they both, whatever, as part of her Christmas gift. She's like, hey, Dad, so I put $50 in my spending account. At least she's got these kind of jars, right? Spending and savings. So she's got $50 in the savings, $50 in the spending, and for the other $50, and I thought she was wanting to buy something different or something. So I'm like, okay, what's coming here? She's like, hey, like I'd like to buy Bitcoin with it. And I was like, what? I'm like, okay, I go. So she's like, how can you help me? And I'm like, yeah, we can figure that out.
11.
So we'll do it. Yeah. So I was like, that was cool, man. So I guess it's just probably to be credit Tom,
fast.
but, you know,
I love that.
And she really likes Tom's daughter and stuff. And I know Tom's daughter has some, so maybe she's heard it from us.
Well,
We've been speaking about it, obviously.
And what's happening, I think Sienna, my daughter, has seen her older brother really kind of like Bitcoin and kind of, he's been in it for later this year, it'll be almost 2 years.
Yeah.
So he's had a nice run and she's seen this. So I think she's saying
The virus is spreading.
Yeah.
it really,
Yeah.
it really is. The dollar, the price going up really has an attractive effect on people. But, you know, she said something to me the other day. She goes, Dad, I know I have some of my savings in Bitcoin. She said, I have from Christmas, she had this $50. And she's like,
Oh, now I know where Ella got it from.
oh, really? Okay.
Well, I don't know.
So she had this $50, but she said something different. She goes, you know, this is part of my spending money, but I don't need it right now. I would like to put this in Bitcoin. And I was like, whoa. Like she's now gone from okay, my savings. So then we had to have a bit of a talk that like, hey, this is a volatile thing. Some money that you might need in the next week. Maybe the price is likely long-term going up. Yes. But in the short term, this is a volatile asset. So now she's in grade 10 and I'm having these conversations with her about a volatile asset. Right. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Do those sound like conversations we have?
She's going to get punched in the face. Like she's going to buy it. It's going to go down. And then she's like,
This
what,
sucks.
10 years, 10, how old? Like,
She's
12,
15 now.
15
She's
years
grade
old.
10.
She's gonna take a couple. She's gonna get a black eye.
Yeah.
Be like, damn, and she's gonna learn early to be able to ride the volatility and hold.
I can
strong.
see it with Aiden already because he's been in for a bit. He's been through the rides like up and down, and to him now it's just like, oh yeah, like I wonder what's happening with it today.
Right.
You know, I feel like almost Nick and you and I are more shocked at some of the price movements. He's more just like, oh.
I don't pay attention that much to it anymore. When I see these,
because we've been through a bunch of wild rides already.
When you see the drawdowns, I'm just kind of like, oh man, like just when I think I'm like, okay, I'm good for now, and then there's a drawdown, I'm like, oh damn, I gotta get some more money in there.
I think like when I talk to guys who hold like a ton of these assets, they don't even check what their portfolio draws down because they don't want to see in their paper
Canadian dollar
Well,
terms.
I call it their paper gains.
It's
Like it's not real, right? It's
Yeah.
not real until you lock it in. So it's like, okay, your paper gains have gone down, so they know it's down, but they don't need to know like the exact amount that they went down, because that when you start looking at the exact amount, it's like, oh, I lost, XYZ. Then you're starting to trip yourself out.
And something is happening, I'll have to admit to myself, and I think this is where Jeff Booth talks about this quite a bit, is that my unit of account is slightly changing because every once in a while I'll think about a house purchase and I'll think about how much that is in Bitcoin terms.
Okay.
Because I'll just think, oh, like how much is that in Bitcoin? And I've never had that thought with really anything else other than Canadian dollars. And I'm having it on and off where I'm like looking at one asset and pricing out in Bitcoin, not Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
So there's this weird mental shift happening where Bitcoin is, not always, but it is becoming a bit of my unit of account just in my mind.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that happened with me
Probably
recently.
because you hold so much.
Maybe.
But it's because I
have a little bit.
It's because I bought a car recently, and I'm like, And I go, so that's like a full Bitcoin and some. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So like, I kind of want. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
I kind of want that Bitcoin back.
Yeah. I'm like, well, I'm kind of like paying it over. So they had financing, and it was 0.99%. I'm like, you know what? A 0.99%. I'm taking the financing.
Right.
Let's go because I'll pay you whatever.
You're getting the leverage, and then you're buying more Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then you want the Bitcoin, and you want it, and you're like, oh, fuck, like I don't have that Bitcoin anymore. So it's like it's encouraging. You know what Saifedean says is like the deferred. Spending and like encouraging.
Where investment real estate. Sorry.
No, sorry. So then I started thinking just one step further. I'm like, holy cow. So I'm going to pay 0.99% there. If I keep the money, I have to make these payments on it. But then if I take the rest of the money and I put it in USDC in a Ledin account and earn 9% on it, I'm like, holy! I think I figured out a little arbitrage thing here to pay for this car.
It's weird because it's made me think about investment real estate too. If you already own property, when you have equity in it, and you can pull out some of that equity at like 1.15% or whatever, and then put it into some of this stuff, you get to own the real estate. You're borrowing against the real estate, paying fiat rates on that, putting it in, earning a higher rate, straight arbitrage, and the interest on that is tax deductible.
Yeah. So you keep the real estate asset.
You keep the real
new
estate
asset. You earn yield on the new asset, and you get the tax.
Wait, hold on. The interest that you're borrowing is tax deductible on the real estate?
If it's an investment property, we're not accountants, and you should speak to your accountant about this.
This
okay?
is not financial
advice. But if you're taking money against a property to use for other investments, and accountants are going to argue how this is done, when it's done, what's considered another investment.
Oh wait, but you just said other property. If you're taking money from one property, and then putting it to use to another property, not putting it in a Ledin USDC.
No, because that would be considered an investment.
As long as it's an investment property.
Oh, that's property?
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the USDC as an investment.
Oh, yeah.
If you're taking like a home equity line of credit.
Yes. Yeah.
A HELOC, right?
Yeah.
And you're taking that, and then you're now putting that into another real estate property. You're saying that what's not taxable. What would be a taxable event?
So now we're going into counting land. But if you have a primary place of home residence and you take a credit line, a HELOC, to borrow for the down payment of an investment property.
Okay.
Well, the interest that you're paying on that HELOC is tax deductible because you've taken that money for an investment.
Okay.
We're not accountants.
So you get to deduct that against
Your
any other
capital
income,
gains?
any other personal income.
Yeah, your capital gains. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
And then if you have one or two or three other investment properties, and over time they all start building equity through mortgage being paid down and appreciation, you might borrow now not on your primary place of residence. You might be borrowing more on properties number 2, 3, and 4 because you don't care to pay down those mortgages as much as your primary place of residence because the mortgages on the investment properties, the interest on the mortgages on investment properties is all tax deductible.
Okay.
So then
You learn something new every day.
Why not leverage that up as long as the cash flow is supporting the portfolio?
Yep.
Borrow more on those investment properties at 1 or 2%, take that money and put it into other investments that might yield you 6% to 9% to 20%.
Why do you think the government
There's all kinds of risks
Why do
there
you think the
and-
government allows that interest to be tax deductible? Because they want to encourage more mortgaging
Investments.
and more movement of the money.
Correct.
Okay.
That would be my guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the interest on your primary residence mortgage is not tax deductible.
Correct.
No, but the
Yeah.
price gain. So the difference is in the U.S.
But the capital
price gains are
the gap.
Yeah,
Because that's it. So that's where they offset that.
Yeah.
Because then you don't have to pay tax on your.
Whereas in the U.S., the interest on their primary place of residence on the mortgage is tax deductible.
But
the price
the
gains
cap
are not.
gains
Exactly.
aren't.
Yeah.
And
so
the
that's-
cap gains here in Canada, especially in the Toronto area, have been just like absolutely astronomical.
Right, so
Not
you
in
should-
Bitcoin terms.
Realistically, you
Not
should
in
be
Bitcoin
moving like in your primary residence, like you should be bouncing around if you can.
That gets into a whole other tax thing because then CRA is saying, well, Jordan, did you really intend to live there? Or was the whole purpose of you living there just to move very shortly? And
so is there a time window that you should?
we had a podcast with a really good tax lawyer about this. It is so complicated.
Okay.
And that's probably one of our most listened to episodes, actually.
It's
Okay,
more-
send it to me.
It's
Yeah,
more,
that's a good one.
yeah, it's more than just a time. There's multiple different factors.
Trying to prove
it.
your intent.
Yeah.
Things like, did you change your driver's license address matter? Or did you just leave it at some other address because you knew you were moving
But
shortly?
if you lived there for a couple of years with your family and then you moved on to something else, they would probably, and you were living there and all your mail was going there, like guys were actually living there, they would have a pretty hard time saying that, that wasn't your primary place of residence.
But think about this real estate thing for one more second. If you can put down 20% to buy it for an investment property, let's use $500,000 as an easy example. You put down $100,000 to buy an investment property at $500,000. That investment property, because Canada's crazy, goes up in value. And let's say it goes up in value 20%. You pick your time frame, 1 day or 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is. If that goes up 20%, that goes up to $600,000. You can then refinance that property, take out the $100,000 that you originally put in, keep the real estate. You're refinancing it out at like 2%. Then you can take the $100,000. I know I'm kind of generalizing on the
it's
financing
more like
here.
80, but
It's-
whatever. But whatever.
But then you could take the $100,000 and put it into some of this digital finance stuff and earn a much higher yield. You're keeping your real estate.
that earns cash flow.
That earns cash flow.
And the mortgage gets paid down by the rent amount by someone else.
And you're getting into the digital
I know.
space. And if you already own that's for a new investment property. Never mind owning your other.
So
we're calling
this all
the bank
works
today?
assuming that the interest rates stay low and that the
Yes.
rates that they
Yeah,
pay
there's
out
a
on the
lot
things
of-
are-
And there's assumptions too
Is
that
there some stuff happening now that you guys know about, like with these rising interest rates that you can share?
Yeah, generally it's a good headline because the Bank of Canada rates are going to be determined by the Bank of Canada's overnight lending rate, and then the bond market. The fixed rates are determined by the bond market.
Yep.
So if people puke on the Canadian bond market and say, "Hey, we don't like Canadian debt anymore," rates can go up in the fixed rate area, but variable rate is determined by the Bank of Canada's overnight lending rate, and they don't want to touch that sucker. So variable rates really haven't been going up.
But I know, like in the U.S., they're looking to
10-year bond spiked a bit.
Yeah,
It's a lot of talk, and a lot of it, Jordan.
And it's crazy how much it affects the short
psyche
term
of the market.
of the stock market, and even I think that has also ripples into the crypto market.
Totally, and that's happened over the last month. And a lot of it, Jordan, from what we see, is a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, rates are going up," and they go up a quarter point.
Yeah,
That's
huge for them.
Yeah,
Like,
in
it's
their
like
context,
they're
it's
at
huge.
near zero interest rates, right?
That's fair. So in that context, it's
If
huge.
you're looking at a percentage, I guess
It's all derivatives, right? So like a quarter here then ends up being, 1%, like 0.5% year, then that ends up filtering down to 1% and then 2%. And then it's all, because it's all derivatives, and then everybody gets their little a pound of flesh along the way.
We'll bring you back to talk about all this kind of stuff because, we'll bring Jordan back and talk about all of that because it's a whole can of worms.
Don't worry. Yeah, I'm sure you have other pods. Okay, send me the tax lawyer one, interest rate one.
Hey, Jordan, always, hey man, we always appreciate you doing this. You came out here, you're busy, you got this deal on the go with Bitbuy. Bitbuy's growing, you guys are exploding in the best possible way. I just want to thank the way you guys have been taking care of so many rockstar investors. Thank you for the way you guys have been doing that. Please pass that around to your team. We're really thankful to have crossed paths with you. We really get a kick out of talking with you and getting updates from you. So thanks, man. Thanks for stopping by. And really,
my pleasure. Chat. I love coming on, and you guys have been awesome. And thank you for all of the rockstar clients that you've sent our way. And we'll continue to work hard to make sure to serve you guys and your community.
Cool. Thank you. And next time, if you want to bring some free Bitcoin by, we won't stop you. If you just want to say, hey.
Why would I bring it by? I just
that's true.
I just sent it to you.
I carry it in your pocket. Thanks, Jordan. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Hey, thanks for tuning in. You can find every new episode of the Your Life, Your Term show on all the major streaming platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And if you'd like to get free copies of some of the books that we've put together, like these right here, or some of the reports that we've put together, like these right here, you can find all of those at www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.